Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Dean, and today we are continuing my current retrospective series going back through all the mainline Mario Karts and ranking the tracks from each game. This time we are all the way up to Wii, so links to the previous videos will be in the description, and with that said, let's go ahead and get right into the ranking. Okay, my last place pick for this game constantly changes, and right now I think it was pretty much solidified as N64 Sherman Land. Just like in the original version, I just have never been a big fan of this track visually as I find it really boring. The road being slippery also is kind of annoying and allows vehicles with large off-road stats to just kind of break away. The main positive I can take away from this iteration is that it is kind of satisfying to drift over the cracks along the road, I guess. It is better than the original, but that is mainly just because I like Mario Kart Wii more than I like Mario Kart 64. Alright, number 31 we got GBA Shy Guy Beach, which to be fair, for it being this low on the list, nowadays I don't even really dislike it all too much. Driving over the water is not fun, but aside from that, the track is definitely a step up visually from Sherman Land. You have a ship shooting cannonballs over at you, which is a fun little obstacle to avoid. Really, as long as you stay in the darkly textured part of the road, it doesn't really pose too much of a threat. Also, I will say the ramps are sort of annoying to go off of unless you are low tricking them. Number 30, we got GCN Peach Beach, which is one of multiple sunshine themed tracks from this game. It is basically the same track we saw in Double Dash. Aside from the pipe in the beginning with the item box, it isn't really much of a downgrade. I think the physics of Mario Kart Wii work pretty well here, particularly with inside drifting and dodging the shifting water and all that cool stuff. Just like with Shy Guy Beach, it is a pretty good looking track, which also helps with my enjoyment. Coming up next at number 29, we got DS Yoshi Falls, which just like in the original version, it isn't bad or anything, it just is kind of short and forgettable. I like it visually, and I also like how they kept the iconic massive Yoshi egg in the middle too. I think the engine of this game works better with this track overall, not that it was bad in DS or anything, I just really like inside drifting. Okay, SNES Valley 2 is boring, but it can occasionally be just difficult enough to make it somewhat fun. Of course, visually not much is going on here aside from the boos in the background, but the walls falling down upon being knocked against adds an element to the track that you need to think about, especially if you have a hard time having a good handle on your vehicle. There is a nice little intended shortcut here too, which does kind of add a bit of spice to the race. However, it being both very easy and shroomless does kind of negate the whole point of it, since everyone can just do it every lap, assuming you are playing with other people. Another SNES track we got here is Mario Circuit 3, and just like the former, it is a very bland layout. However, the abundance of off-road does allow for some fun races. The turns also can get pretty tight, which makes it so if you are using a vehicle with bad drift, then have fun. N64 DK's Jungle Parkway is next up on the list, and it is pretty alright. You got a fun 270-degree turn, which leads into a cannon towards the beginning, which both is satisfying to go around and can be detrimental for trapping with items. The middle section of the track also feels pretty decent to cut sharply and drift around. The ending section with the bridge and the cave isn't as fun to me, which I'm not really sure why. Maybe the road just feels more constricted here, I don't know. Okay, Mario Circuit I used to like a lot, and its mediocrity has really set in as time has passed on. It's not a bad track, but it's also not that great either. I think part of it is that it really does just feel like another Mario Circuit track, especially after playing Double Dash and DS. I mean, just like in Double Dash, there is a turn guarded by a chain jump and an off-road area next to it. There's definitely some strategy to this track, but it is by no means stellar. And the twin brother of the last track, Luigi Circuit, is up next, and basically the same thing applies here, except it's themed around Luigi and the layout is marginally better. There is no chain jump here, which definitely helps me like it better. Also, I just think Luigi is cooler than Mario. The shortcut with all the pipes is also a really nice touch, making it so it isn't a complete gimme of a shortcut as it demands a bit of precision to correctly get it down. Okay, GC and Mario Circuit, basically the same thing as before, but it's from Double Dash, and I guess I just have more nostalgia for this one or something, but I just prefer playing on this track. Yeah, there's a chain jump, but everything just feels better to drive on for some reason. I also really like how you can double trick the ramp at the end for some reason. Okay, finally rounding out our basic raceway tracks, we got N64 Mario Raceway, which is kind of like the previous three, but a bit more bland visually and a lot more fun to race on, which gives it the edge. I like how there's so much off-road here, especially the shortcut right after the mountain between the piranha plants, as just like before, it isn't easy to correctly perform, so you need to kind of practice. If I had to guess, this isn't a popular opinion, but I don't care, I just prefer playing on this track. Okay, sorry, I forgot about the other circuit track here, Daisy Circuit, which just visually looks so cool that I had to put it above the other four. They went for a sunset golden aesthetic here, which does wonders for making it stand out. There isn't really a lot of off-road or shortcuts aside from going through the building, but even then I have a really good time racing on it. Number 20, we got Moo Moo Meadows, which as a kid I did not do my due diligence appreciating this track as it was always one of my least favorites. I guess guess it being a 20 is not really that much of an upgrade, but trust me, I like it. I just enjoy how wholesome of a track this is. You get to dodge some cows, which are obnoxious to avoid by the way, not as hectic as the random grass splotches towards the end though. Although the remake in Mario Kart 8 improves the track a lot, the original had a lot of fun things going on. DS Desert Hills went from being a track that I hated to being a track that I fancy quite a bit. As long as you were using an inside drifting bike like the Flame Runner or the Mach bike, the ending zigzag section isn't that bad at all. You do have an angry sun spewing fire at you, which is the main challenge here, but I never found it to be too annoying or anything. Also, we get another double trick ramp we can do here, which I just love doing quite a bit. It's pretty fun. Moonview Highway is by far the most hectic traffic track we have ever seen in Mario Kart, and I absolutely love it for that. You got people driving down both sides of the road that probably should all be getting DUIs because holy f, there is anything but sobriety on these roads. The drivers being so out of control makes it way harder to avoid, which in turn makes the races more fun. Also, the city section is so cool to go through just because of the nighttime aesthetic. Okay, now we got perpendicular circuit, I mean N64 Bowser's Castle. 90-degree turn after 90-degree turn, so iconic. The castle itself admittedly is a little basic feeling, although that does kind of add to its primitive charm. The thwomps can definitely be obnoxious to avoid too until you learn their patterns, same with the lava spires towards the end. The shortcut at the end is also the perfect example of how to do a shroomless cut. It is effective enough to be worth doing with practice, however there is an element of risk as failing to do it, which it is easy to fail it, likely results in losing time. Okay, BC3, I kinda go back and forth on it all the time, so I decided why not just throw it in the middle. Very boring track visually, but the layout allows for so many close and exciting races that it kind of saves itself. There really isn't too much to say about this track. I mean, make sure you know how to low trip for the middle section, which I unfortunately have never really been able to master as a skill, but aside from that, I mean, it's just a fun track to race on. Okay, now we get to the chosen tracks. Yeah, all 15 of them. GC and DK Mountain is so good. Go up a mountain, drive down. The concept is so simple but so effective. Only thing I can easily point out that I wish was a feature would be the ability to trick down the mountain, as oh man, that would feel so nice. But the shortcut at the end is fun, and the bridge next to the finish line is a total death trap. DS Peach Gardens, what a track. Shrooming through the off-road just feels so joyful every time, it never gets old. I love the maze section in the middle, how you just kind of weave your way in and out of all the leaves and dodge the chain chomps running around. I mentioned this in my DS ranking video, but Peach's Castle looks a little, you know, like not Peach's Castle, but it's all good. Also, I love going around the final turn and just wheeling off the ledge down the steps, it feels so good. Next up we got Wario's Gold Mine, which kind of is like a precursor to Mario Kart 8's anti-gravity. It isn't exactly like that, but the feeling kind of reminds me of that, just going up and down and the controls getting all wonky. I love this whole concept of driving around the mines, it is such a fun time. Also, the shortcut at the end is just iconic here. Having to potentially weave around a minecart on a tiny sliver of road feels so satisfying if you pull it off. Okay, coming up at number 12 we got Toad's Factory, which thematically has always been one of the coolest Mario Kart tracks. This is where item boxes get made, which also just happens to be a pretty fun racetrack. The track makes really cool use of conveyor belts that either will make you go left and right and dodge boxes, or forward and backward, with the green belt acting as a speed boost around a tight turn. Also, always have enjoyed the ending mud section with how chaotic everything gets. Alright, closing in on our top 10, we got GC and Waluigi Stadium. Love this track in Double Dash, and it just fits this game even more perfectly. The combination of inside drifting and half-pipe ramps and a stadium track in this game is a match made in heaven. Since you can wheelie in this game too, the long straightaway part is way less sluggish feeling. Well, assuming you are using a bike, of course. Also, I have to love doing the little low trick thing on the big beginning ramp. It feels so good when you pull it off. Kicking off the top 10, we got DK Summit, which is kind of like GC and DK Mountain, where you take a cannon to the top of a mountain and make your way down. This time it is snowy though, feeling much more like a kind of winter Olympic course, which just so happens to make it feel more fun as a Mario Kart track. Nothing against DK Mountain though. There is deep snow for you to avoid here, which getting into it will slow you down to a screeching halt, which acts as a really good obstacle. Also, the half-pipe area around the end is really cool, having to dodge said thick snow in the snowboarders. Mushroom Gorge introduces the cool concept of bouncing on, well, mushrooms, which is a fun little track component. Red ones bounce you up and green ones don't, it's very simple. Navigating around controlling the mushrooms at first presents a fun challenge for newcomers, but I feel that it does a pretty good job of getting manageable relatively quickly. Overall, just a really fun and unique track to be so early on in the game in the Mushroom Cup. Now, of course, Bowser's Castle has to be somewhere in the top 10, and while it isn't at the very top like it was with the past two two rankings, it just happens to have a lot of heavy competition here for me. This one specifically carries a few of the tropes from Double Dash, with the wavy road at the beginning and the giant Bowser statue spewing fireballs at you and whatnot. Not that it feels like a ripoff though, they still very much feel like different tracks, I just have to point that out. Specifically, the fireball section in the middle actually acts as a good challenge too for inexperienced players. I mean, even sometimes I fall victim to the fireballs or mistiming the ramps on the sides. Okay, the big sleeper pick of the ranking, Dry Ruins. I feel like I never really hear many people outside of the dedicated Mario Kart Wii community that commend this track, and I'm so sorry, I gotta sing its praises here. While I usually do like desert-themed Mario Kart tracks, they never really completely stand out among the rest of the courses in their respective games, with this being the big exception to that rule. For one thing, this is a track that is difficult to master in the sense that there are fun and satisfying strats to pull off, like the little sand hop thing or the half-pipe wall weird glitch thing. I mean, just the fact that this is a desert-themed track that changes the setting dynamically as it doesn't all take place outdoors is cool. Inside the ruins, you got sand that slowly piles up on all 3 laps, making it harder to navigate. Also, the abundance of shortcut opportunities are of course great in my books. Koopa Cape, of course I had to put it up here, it's Koopa Cape. This is the big precursor to driving underwater that would become a thing one game later. Well, kind of, since here you were driving inside of a tube, which in my opinion is better because it gives the track an aquarium kind of vibe. Also, inside of the tube section you dodge electricity, which probably should be a lot more dangerous in this setting, but it's Mario, so it's fun or whatever. The rest of the track is cool too. The beginning takes place right up against a massive cliff, which has always been a nice little layout. Also in the middle you drive up a stream, allowing for you to go way faster, and there's some off-road to skip through. Just once again, a masterful track. That brings us to Grumble Volcano, which has always been my favorite track in the game, but I don't know, recently there has just been some other ones that have grown on me a bit more. This one is still great though. I love the whole concept of parts of the track breaking down as laps go by, making it more difficult. The volcano spews fireballs in the second half of the track too, which adds even more difficulty to it. The theming here is admittedly a little lackluster because it's just a volcano, but whatever, it's still a fun track. Rainbow Road in this game is f***ing nuts. Thankfully, that is exactly what I want my Rainbow Road to be like, so number 4 it is. Seriously, if you aren't fully acquainted with the controls in this game, you will struggle here, which can make it really frustrating at first, but it just makes for such fun and chaotic races, especially with friends. I mean, I think 80% of the difficulty of this track just lies with these 2 turns before the cannon. Like, these are brutal. I just had to throw some appreciation for this track. It's always been one of the coolest Rainbow Roads out there. Now we get to the best retro in the game by far, DS Delfino Square. This track was a masterpiece in DS, and it's even more of a masterpiece in this game. For one thing, the dock shortcut feels even more prominent and doable in this game, as well as the double shortcut that combines the dock cut with the off-road cut through the buildings. Aside from that, I mean, what is there to say that I didn't say in my DS rankings? This track is just amazing to drive through. All the tight turns cutting through the buildings in the town section, driving by the water, going over the bridge is all so fun. Coconoma, the audacity of a track to execute on its theme so well. Of course, going around a shopping mall in the form of a Mario Kart track is a genius. Talk about a track not feeling linear. The amount of choices you have on where to go on this course is absurd. There is also a fun shortcut to do at the beginning, as well as that one glitch that completely breaks the track, but we don't talk about that. I also love the parked cars in this version of the track compared to the bull that we got in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. However, as of right now, my number 1 favorite track in Mario Kart Wii is Maple Treeway. I just had to. This whole maple aesthetic has always gotten me. I'm just completely into it. Maple Treeway is also pretty hard, with you needing to control going over the winding branches or needing to avoid the wigglers in the middle section. I also like how going over the leaf piles gives you items too, just adds flavor to the races. You also got the massive trickable wavy bridge towards the end, which is way more satisfying to go through than a glider ramp. I'm sorry. I will say I can't talk about Coconut Mall being glitchy and not bring that up here, because if you know, then you know. But the glitchiness doesn't impede on the quality of the races, so who cares? Anyways, that's my ranking for all 32 tracks in Mario Kart Wii, meaning we only got 2 more games to go through. As always, feel free to put what your thoughts are on the tracks in this game in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, peace out.